In a small village near the great Odiwa forest, there lived a skilled hunter named Mwana. Known for his keen eyes and steady hands, Mwana was the pride of his people. But Mwana had a reputation for being stubborn. He never heeded warnings about the forest dangers. Believing his skills made him untouchable, the elders often spoke of the forest as a living thing, a place where respect was as necessary as food and water. "Do not take more than you need," they would say. "The forest sees and remembers." Mwana dismissed these tales as mere superstition. One dry season, the village faced hunger. The rains had not come and the crops were withering. The elders called Mwana to a meeting. "Mwana," they said, "you must go deep into the forest and bring back enough meat to feed the village. But remember, take only what you need, and do not stray where you do not belong." Mwana nodded, though inwardly he smirked. "I am the best hunter in this village," he thought. "I will bring back enough to last us for weeks." Early the next morning, Mwana set out into the forest with his bow, arrows, and a small knife. The forest air was cool, and the trees stood tall, their branches forming a canopy that dimmed the sunlight. As he walked, the usual sounds of birds and insects seemed quieter than usual. After hours of tracking, Mwana spotted a herd of dayawikers grazing by a stream. He crouched behind a bush, carefully aiming at the largest one. He released his arrow, and it struck true. The diker fell, and the rest of the herd scattered. Mwana quickly approached his kill as he tied the diker to a pole to carry it back. He noticed fresh tracks leading deeper into the forest. These tracks were from a buffalo, large and heavy. Mwana's eyes gleamed. A buffalo would feed the entire village for days. Why stop with just one diker, he thought. Ignoring the elders' warnings, he followed the tracks. The buffalo's trail led Mwana deeper than he had ever ventured into the forest. The air grew heavier, and the trees seemed older, their twisted roots snaking across the ground. Mwana finally spotted the buffalo in a dense thicket. It was enormous, its horns sharp and menacing. But Mwana's confidence did not waver. He nocked an arrow and aimed at the buffalo. Just as he was about to release, a rustling sound came from the bushes behind him. Mwana turned his head sharply, but saw nothing. Shrugging it off, he focused back on the buffalo only to find it gone. The thicket was empty. Frustrated, Mwana decided to continue his pursuit. As he followed the buffalo's trail, he noticed something strange. The forest had grown eerily silent. No birds sang, no insects buzzed. Even the wind seemed to have stopped. Mwana's confidence began to waver, but he shook off his unease. "I am the master of this forest," he muttered to himself. "Nothing can harm me." Eventually, he reached a small clearing where the buffalo stood, its back turned to him. Mwana readied his bow again, his fingers steady. But before he could release the arrow, he felt the ground beneath him shift slightly, as if the earth itself had moved. Startled, Mwana stepped back, and his foot sank into a hidden hole. He fell to the ground, his ankle twisted painfully. As he tried to get up, he heard the sound of heavy footsteps. The buffalo had turned to face him, its dark eyes glaring. But instead of charging, it slowly walked away, disappearing into the trees. Emil tried to stand, but his ankle throbbed. He was stranded. The shadows of the trees lengthened as the sun began to set, and the forest grew darker. As the night deepened, Mwana heard faint rustling around him. He gripped his knife tightly, his heart pounding. In the darkness, shapes seemed to move between the trees, but he couldn't be sure if they were real or imagined. The hours dragged on, and Mwana began to shiver, both from the cold and from fear. He thought of the elder's words, "The forest sees and remembers." Had he angered the forest by taking more than he needed? By dawn, Mwana's strength was nearly gone. He whispered a prayer to the spirits of the forest, promising to respect its rules if he survived. As if in answer, a group of villagers appeared, led by an elder who had followed his trail. They helped Mwana back to the village, where the healer treated his ankle. Mwana recounted his experience, and the elders nodded. "Knowingly remember this, Mwana," said the chief elder. "The forest is not just a place for hunting. It is alive, and it has rules. Respect it, and it will provide. Disrespect it, and it will remind you who is in charge." From that day on, Mwana became a humble and respectful hunter. He never took more than the village needed, and always gave thanks to the forest for its gifts. And the forest, in turn, provided for his people, as it always had.